Have you ever walked into a room and felt like something or someone was there with you? You believe in ghosts. Is there a way to investigate unexplained experiences? You are in the right place, for Indian River Hauntings presents Encounters with the Other Side. The ghost guy, Larry Lawson, is your host. With years of experience in law enforcement, he knows how to search for the truth. Stay right here as Larry and his guests from around the world discuss paranormal evidence and answer your questions about encounters with the other side.
And welcome back, everyone, to Encounters with the Other Side. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, otherwise known as the Ghost Guy, and really happy to have you back today. I'm here in the studio with our engineer extraordinaire, Cliff Desmond.
Oh, gee, thanks.
Minding the store, making sure everybody can hear what's going on. And I've got a great show today, Cliff. Excited to tell you about it in just a minute.
Ooh,
this is gonna be a great show.
I can't wait.
I want to remind everybody how to listen to our show. If you're not listening to us live on WPSL 1590, you can catch us on the website www.wpsl.com, and you can catch the show live. And from there, you can also download the TuneIn app, which will allow you to hear the show. Google Home and Alexa also works. And if you miss all of those, you can catch us on YouTube with the video feed and see both myself and my guests.
The archives, yeah.
The archives, yeah. And in fact, I'm going to be putting those, you're going to see those shows on my YouTube website, also Indian River Hauntings, and that's going to be coming up in the next couple of days. So folks, you can catch all those shows. After all, WPSL is known as the webcaster to the world.
Yeah, we were the first ones around here to be able to say that.
That's right. And so we've got listeners all over the world. We've got listeners in Lapland or Finland and Sweden and all parts in the north. So I want to invite those folks that might be listening to us to say hello. In fact, those of you that are DXers, and there's a few of you out there that knows what that is. I'm a DXer myself.
If you're a DXer and you hear this show, be sure to email Larry and he'll
that's right.
He'll be glad to hear from you.
That's right. And those are folks that like to listen to faraway radio stations.
I don't know how they get us, but they get us.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. This is a call-in show, folks. And we'd love to hear from you, your thoughts, your opinions, your disagreements, and maybe your agreements also. But our phone number here is 772-340-1590. It's 340-1590, as in the radio station 1590. Mention our sponsors as well as the shout outs I want to do today. My good friend at Pareidolia Brewery up in Sebastian, Florida on Cleveland Street. Pete Anderson and his crew, it's probably the finest brewery, I think, in the state of Florida, but I'm prejudiced there, I admit. He came up with a couple of good brews this week. Waffle Cone Vanilla Coffee Stout. Huh? That just sounds really, I don't know, it doesn't sound like a beer, but man, I tasted it. It is fantastic. And he came up with another one that he named for a toy his daughter had, Diamond Roby, which is a strawberry milkshake IPA, which once again, I said that, I don't know. It's fantastic, Cliff. So go see Pete and the guys and gals up there at Pareidolia Brewery in Sebastian, Florida on Cleveland Street.
It's also been rumored to be haunted.
Oh, it is very haunted. The Pareidolia Brewery is haunted. We've done 3 investigations in there and gotten some really interesting stuff out of there. I want to say hi to Ike Enzi at IDK Paranormal, retired police chief out there in New Mexico, and has a terrific show on YouTube. Good friend, tremendous investigator. So I want to say hi to him, as well as Chris George at Anubis Paranormal Research Organization out in Colorado. Just as a side note, my team's going out to Utah to meet up with Chris and Ike to do an investigation in April. So stay tuned to my website and YouTube for that information. And of course, Doodlebug Dowsing, Sherry and Nikki up in Orlando that supply all of our dowsing rods. Take a look at our YouTube channel, Indian River Hauntings. You'll see not only the TV shows that we've produced, but also some podcasts. And you're going to start seeing this show on there also. So check us out on Facebook, Our websites, www.indianriverhauntings.com and www.paranormalfbi.com. And you can also catch us on Instagram. So that's my beginning, Cliff.
Okay.
But I gotta bring on our guest, Miss Deborah Hatswell. She's from Lancashire, England, and I hope, Deb, I pronounced that correctly.
Yes.
Deb is an author, a phenomenist, and a British Bigfoot and Dogman expert.
Okay.
She is had some pretty extraordinary experiences over the years, and I'm just excited to chat with her. Deb, welcome to the show.
Hi, Lara. Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to be here.
Well,
The Phenonomist actually was a joke that somebody made up, because I started out investigating just Bigfoot reports, nothing more, nothing less.
Mhm.
That was 40 years ago. And now I investigate cases of reptilians, dogmen, cryptid creatures, paranormal investigations, all manner of strange sea creatures, and I have a very, very interesting job.
well, and this I really want to delve into this, because a lot of folks don't realize how many different things are out there and how many things are investigated and how many people are out there actually looking into these strange unknown phenomenon. But tell us, you're all Lancashire now, you're up in the northern part of England, correct?
Yes, I am. I'm in the northwest of England on the coast there, probably similar to Oregon in America, just below Washington State. So Scotland would be my Washington State, and I'm just over the border in the north of England there.
Okay.
I think you know one of my colleagues, Chris Huff, he's on the northeast coast.
Right.
So we're opposite the mountain range from each other.
And you've had some pretty nasty weather up there recently too, haven't you?
Yes, I have to apologise for my lighting today. Unfortunately, we've had the third storm hit in the last 10 days today, and we're on the generator. So everything's fluctuated. I've got everything zoomed in onto the programme. So every other room in the house is completely black.
You're on a generator. You sound like you're in Florida during hurricane season.
We just keep getting battered with storms and battered with storms and battered, and every time we try and get back up, and it happens every year, to be honest. This has been a spectacular year for it.
Well, let's get this show on the road so the storm does not interrupt us, because we got a great feed from across the pond right now. How, Deb, did you find yourself in this world of the paranormal? Now, I use the term paranormal to cover all things that can't be explained by science. That's just my definition. But you've got one heck of a story on what introduced you to the world of, we'll just say, Bigfoot. And they call the British Bigfoot is called wild man, I guess.
They call him the wild man, the wood wouse, but similar to America and Canada, regional names are used for them. So, and regional descriptions come up for them. I didn't know anything about them. I was 15. I live, I should explain, in America, you have 3 mountain ranges, and in the UK, one that goes right down the middle is called the Pennine Way, and I'm just at the bottom of that. So for all it is a town, it's also just on the edge of a town, so you've got lots of natural valleys and rivers that flow. Not the type of place that you would think anybody would see a Bigfoot. I'd had experiences when I was a child of things in my room, but nothing like that. Just things coming from the wall and things that frightened me. I never put the events together till I was in my 30s. But honestly, it was summer. I'd say it was May, June. It was really nice weather, quite sunny. And we, in England, we have a pretend exam before we sit our last exams of school. And I didn't want to go in, so I didn't go in. And me and my friend decided that we'd go and hide in the woodland. There's a big old mansion there and a garden. And that's exactly what we were doing. Mm-hmm. We hooked into the rhododendrons and we would lay down talking to each other when you lean on your elbow and just chat. And that's what we were doing. And I just noticed a really quick movement out of the corner of my eye. And if I hadn't seen that movement, I wouldn't have seen what was to come. And I thought it was going to be a teacher at first, or a lad that was going to jump out. And it wasn't this thing. I don't really even know how to describe him. Just kind of came out from the greenery. I could only see him from mid-chest up, and he just looked at me. And I looked at him, and I was absolutely terrified. And I just, sounds awful, but I just pushed my friends to the floor and I ran with everything I had. And I looked back, and he just kind of melded back into the green. He didn't, obviously I couldn't see his body, so I don't know if he stepped back or he just leant back. I'm not really sure. He looked like, I call him the man ape. I've never used the word Bigfoot for him. He's always been the man ape for me, because that's
Man ape, you said.
Yeah, he looked like a man and an ape that had been forced together. So very human teeth, no canines, nothing like that, quite normal, but bigger, much bigger than a man. My father is a really, really big man. He was what you'd call a street fighter. And it looked like it could have just grabbed my dad and thrown him. So it was absolutely terrifying. I don't really know another word for it. It affected me that much that I've spent 40 years looking for him, looking for somebody else that's seen what I've seen. Very pronounced brow ridge, very thick muscles around his jaw and his eyes, as if he could just crunch through bone. He was completely hairy, no hair on the face. On his chin, it was like a teenage boy would have, like a bit scraggly beard, but his body was hair covered. And it took me 32 years to find another woman that contacted somebody in America, because she'd seen something 2 years after me in the same place, and he was able to kind of put us together.
So you've got 2 reported sightings in the same spot. Interesting.
Yes, a number of them, yeah, going back to the 1950s now.
I got to ask you the question, because I know folks out there would want to ask it. Any chance it could have been somebody that was just in the woods and hadn't shaved? Is it any chance it was humans?
No, not at all. I believe me, I come from a very small, hard working class town. I've been asked all of those questions. Was it a man in a suit? Was it a homeless guy? Was it a tramp, we call him? Was it a hobo? It was none of those things. He looked flesh and blood. But there is no way that he could have been there concealed in that area where he was. I'm fortunate now. I've been able to go in with investigation teams and look at the area. I took a team in last month. I didn't tell them anything about where they were going to be. And one of them, Mick, who I work closely with, said, I'm going to try and guess where you were, Deb, if I can. He does a lot of work with ley lines and stuff. So I thought, right, okay, then I said, yeah, let's do that. And in we went, and he said, was it there? And I said, no, it wasn't there actually, but I think that's where it came from. And I knew that they would walk into an energy line as they crossed into where I was. And each one of them, as they went in, had that woozy, dizzy, drunken feeling that you get, almost weak at the knees. And you walk out of it as you pass the house. You walk out of that energy.
So you know there's a ley line that goes through there. Did I get that right?
Yeah, come right through. Because that's, you ask yourself, don't you? You say, if you've seen a ghost, a spirit, a UFO, you ask yourself these questions. Could it have been a time slip? Could it have been some kind of hit mass? We both hallucinated the same thing. Could it have been one of the plants in the garden? All of those things. I've even checked out rhododendrons, because they seem to pop up in a lot of Bigfoot investigation areas, and they were used by the Tibetans to basically to arb from one place to another. And they used the honey taken from that plant as an hallucinogenic. I even looked into that in case that would give me, I just want somebody to say to me, oh, it wasn't that. This is what it was. You were mistaken. And then all that fear that I had would be been for nothing. But nobody's ever done that. And I have checked every single corner of the world. When you were introducing me tonight, I've taken Bigfoot reports from every single place that you mentioned, including Finland, because people just don't believe that they're outside of the US.
Well, and that's what's really fascinating, because we here in the US, we think of Bigfoot and we think that Bigfoot is only here, yet you hear stories that come out of Russia with the Yeti. I'll be honest with you, until I got to know Chris first, Chris Huff, and then talking to some other folks, I didn't realize that you even had an issue with what we would call Bigfoot over in England.
Many Brits would agree with you on that. And they would say that there's not enough land for him. He can't possibly be here. every frequently asked question that an American researcher has to answer. So do I. Only 6.9% of the UK is urban, and that includes roads. So that's over 90% that there's nothing built on.
And when I was over there, I found that odd. I kind of expected England to be a lot more urban than it was, but there is so much open land there. It's wonderful. Now, your experiences and your desire to have people not only believe you, but understand that the phenomenon exists, caused you to create an organization. Can you share what that is and what your mission statement is?
Well, it's like most of the people out there who are investigators in their own right. You start out by looking, and then you find other people. And I'm incredibly lucky that I managed to do that in the UK. And back then, I was just looking for anything that looked like an ape. You know, I wasn't taking dogman reports, no interest in them. I was obsessed with finding an answer. But you ask yourself, you only have your own skill set. So I knew that I'd have to reach out. I'd need to speak to people who were out in the woodlands all of the time because they were hunting or they wild camped out there. I knew that I'd have to get on with farmers, anyone that's out there all of the time. I used to get on the radio, CB radio. I'm very lucky. I live close to a mountain range, so we drive up to the top and I'd get on the radio and I'd cast out to wherever would get me, you know? So I've even taken American reports from here. And I realized that as I was finding more witnesses and bringing them in, they were coming with their own stories. So many people will not just have a paranormal report experience in their life. They might also have a UFO experience, but we seem to box them off. We seem to say, right, well, I'll take that account off you, but I'm not interested in those because they don't fit my remit. I think we all I did it for a very long time. And I realized that I needed to stop doing that because the stories that were coming to me and I was used to, by then, I've probably got 20 years used to looking for tricks and things like that, where I can trick people up if they're trying to hoax me. And I'm meeting credible people in professional fields, in the services. You know, really credible people. And by that time, I'd been called every name under the sun. I'd had so many doors shut in my face, it didn't matter to me anymore. So I'd say, right, well, I'll put your story out there. And I'd find somebody near you that will come out and meet you if that's what you want, or come to your house and sit down and have a conversation with you about it. Or do you want to come out and meet us and have a cup of tea? We put cake on me, we don't charge anyone any money. We just say, if you've got an experience and you want to talk about it with like-minded people, then just come. You know,
so you collect reports from all over the world, and it has anything to do with the cryptid world, the Bigfoot world, UFO world. What's the name of your organization?
We're just called BBI Investigations at the moment, and I keep everything under that remit. If you're looking for me, you just put Deborah Hatswell, BBI Investigations, and I will pop up. That meant in the beginning British Bigfoot reports, but because I don't just do that now, and because I would say that my motto is, it doesn't matter to me if you don't believe me or not. That doesn't take the experience away. So you can tell me what I've seen or what I didn't see or where I was or where I wasn't. Doesn't matter. I'm still there with that experience, and I have to find out what he was.
Now, we now are obviously familiar that you have a Bigfoot phenomenon in England, and we've got the folks here. I've personally never seen one, but in all my years of being a cop, I have learned not to have a closed mind. And, you know, it's kind of funny because along those lines, every time I found a criminal that did something really bad and I thought I'd seen it all, I found somebody that found a new level of depth that they would shrink to. So I've learned to keep an open mind. So I certainly am interested in hearing these stories. And I know, I mean, so many people have seen them, but you'll get somebody that says, well, now, wait a minute. If Bigfoot exists, how come a drone hasn't caught them? How come there have been no remains ever found?
All of that, they're all legitimate questions and need to be answered. Why don't we have drone footage? Are they flesh and blood? Are they not flesh and blood and can come in and out at will? In England, we all know the word druid, and I'm sure you do in America. And the word druid comes from dryad. And that was the original people that lived in the UK, and they were called the men of the trees. and they could be man or tree at will.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're dealing with something down that kind of line, it doesn't matter if we've got food, we won't find evidence, we won't get them on video. I think Patty is one that everybody knows. When you actually know the story behind that, it was exceptional.
No, the story of what? I didn't quite hear that.
There's most people think that Patterson and Gimlin, the people that got the very famous Bigfoot film,
Okay.
they were just out there for 2 hours, and there they were, and they seen this creature cross. It wasn't like that. They'd been out there a good 6 weeks on horseback, so they were smelling like that animal by the time they got to that point. And there'd been a flood, a very serious flood that hadn't happened for 150 years. So the main route that you would have walked was no longer there. And I honestly believe that she hasn't smelt them. And I think 99.9 times when you get a Bigfoot report, they will say it crossed the road in front of the car, or it walked away from me, away. And that's exactly what the creature did on that video. And if you remember, she looks back. And I call her she because she has breasts, quite clear, visible breasts. I think that was an exceptional situation where two worlds came together. And she did everything she could to get out there. And as a woman, I honestly believe that they were young back there and she was leading them away. I think she was follow me and not what's back there. If we look at them, Larry, as a tribe, maybe, if you don't believe in the dimensional and you don't believe in the flesh and blood, what if they're a kind of hominid like we are? At one time, there was 20 hominids walking this earth and some of them interbred.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some quite famous DNA samples out there in America that come back as 94% human male, human mother. Sorry, I got that wrong. 94% human for the mother, 6% unknown for the male.
Now, this is DNA that has come from where?
One in Alaska. There's one in, I always get the name of it wrong. Is it Berkeley or Berkeley University?
Berkeley. Probably.
Berkeley University have a hair sample that was tested by Dr. Jeff Meldrum sent it in. It was tested and it was 96% female and 4% unknown male. And there's also another one in Alaska. But there's quite a lot of people out there that have got decent DNA, which nobody will take it off them. I mean, Melba Ketchum, for instance.
So is your theory that it's a dimensional creature or a creature that is here, flesh and blood, all the time, and we've just not made contact?
I'm leaving my options open, in all honesty,
Okay.
because I don't know. I saw him for a split second.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it had a huge impact on my life, but that doesn't give me any insight into what he is or why he was there that day. I don't know any of those answers, and I still have them after all that time. And you have to go where your evidence leads you. And I
Agree.
I cannot hand on heart say that what I've seen is 100% flesh and blood, because I've seen evidence of other things where they will just disappear at whim. There's this fleur footage that was taken in Shropshire, and you can't see anything with the naked eye moving, but on the fleur you can see like a humanoid shape moving about. So you're thinking, can we just not see them? Are they dimensional? Is it a natural biological trick where they can just hide at whim? I honestly don't know. Luckily, there's thousands of people out there trying to come up with the answers to that.
Well, and I appreciate the fact that you're saying you don't know. We've got too many people that think they do know, and that's the whole crux of this. Nobody knows for sure yet, and that's what our quest is. We're going to need to take a break here in just a second. So folks, stay with me with Deborah Hatswell, paranormal author and Bigfoot expert. We'll be back in just a second. Stay with us.
Would you like the opportunity to participate in a paranormal adventure? Indian River Hauntings is your connection for historical walking tours and events with a paranormal twist. Learn historical facts and haunted stories about Vero Beach, Sebastian, and Fellsmere. Guests get a hands-on experience and use investigative equipment to see for themselves what can and cannot be explained. Book your ghost tour or contact Larry Lawson $1,000 for a custom event at the website IndianRiverHauntings.com.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
We now continue with encounters with the other side, including the side where all the Bigfoots are hidden. Once again, here's Larry Lawson.
Well done, Cliff. Well done. I'm back with my guest today, Deborah Hatswell, phenomenist, writer, investigator, and founding member of the organization Being Believed Research and Investigations. BBI Investigations, a worldwide reporting investigative group that gets reports from all over the world. And you do truly get reports from all over the world, don't you, Deb?
I do. I'm in a very lucky position. I do. In England, there isn't many people that you can give your report to, but I know that there are in Canada and America. And it would surprise you, I would imagine, that even people in America that see these creatures, that nobody's taking them seriously. A number of organizations are, but there's lots that are slipping through the cracks and they find me. Mm-hmm. And then, so I've taken an account from Slave Lake in BC from a gentleman whose name is Randy, and he doesn't mind me sharing his name. He is native to the area. He's a bear guide, so he knows his stuff, you know. And he said, one day, Deb, I went out to hunt. No knowledge of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, knows about hairy man tails, but to him, it's just a myth. It's just a legend. And he said he went out, he parks the car about 5 miles away from where he's going to hunt. He walks in and he said, I'm going through the forest as quietly as I can. And the next thing, this bull moose comes tearing out of the trees and its eyes are rolling and it's screaming at the top of his voice. And he said he expected to see a cat or a bear at the back of it. Mm-hmm. And he said it wasn't, it was this creature. And he just said it looked like a monkey or a man, and it was clinging onto the back of the moose. He said, and as the moose was running and running, it was making its way up the moose's back. He said it put its hand under the moose's chin, it brought its chin right back, and the moose dropped to the floor. And Randy said, wow, I just stepped out of there. I just walked backwards without thinking about it, as quietly as I could. He said, and I was armed. But I don't think that would have helped me, because either the creature was so interested in the moose, it didn't see me, you know? Mm-hmm. And it really played him. He said, I got in the car and I drove and I just stopped when I got to the tarmac because I knew I was okay there. And he said he was just fell to pieces in the car. And I was able to say to him, I know another couple in Mitsu, which is just south by about 15 miles.
Of you, south of you?
Yeah, no, south of him.
Okay, oh, of him. He was in British Columbia, is that what you said?
Yeah, he's in British Columbia. Okay. Yeah, just close to Slave near Yellowknife. Okay. So below him is Mitsu, M-I-T-S-U-E. And there's the couple, the kids in the car, and they're driving, and they're looking for deer, the sign of deer. And the husband spots what he said was this creature that was kind of watching them as they were driving very slowly. And it was using the tree to shield itself. And he said their hands, the fingers were like Red Bull hands, they were that big. And his wife was quite scared and wouldn't get out of the car, but he got out, he wanted to see what it was. And he said it shook a bush, you know, like really violently made a lot of noise. He didn't try and attack them or hurt them or anything like that. But it was definitely like, don't come over this way. And he said, I just got back in the car and drove. And I thought, isn't it strange that you've got two people from British Columbia and they tell me in the northwest of England, their accounts, and yet they don't know each other. So the idea is get those two men together, get them swapping stories, because I'm sure, I know Randy's had other experience, not with Sasquatch, but unexplained experiences. Like he said, I shot a deer one day, Deborah, and it was 30 feet away from me. He said, and I walked in to get it in the long grass and it was gone. Couldn't find it anywhere. There was no sign of blood. There was no bubbling blood. It's not a lung shot, nothing like that. There's no sign of it running out. He said, I did a circle and I couldn't find it. And then I did a spiral and I couldn't find it. I got my mate and I said to him, why did you keep going back? He said, because I wanted the meat. That's why I was out there. I wanted the meat.
You went hunting for a reason, right?
Yeah, and he said there was no drag marks. The grass was about 6 foot high and there was no drag marks where the animal had been taken away or anything. And it was about 3 years after when he spoke to me, and that still annoyed him. You could hear it in his voice that he couldn't find that deer.
Wow.
You know?
How many countries have you gotten reports from, if you had to guess?
Honestly, probably, I'd say 70% of the world. Brazil, Finland, Germany, obviously all along the Himalayas. You've got the Pakistani side, you've got the Afghani side. You don't hear those reports because of the wars that go on, but the soldiers make them. You know, they're out there if you look. So it's not Hawaii, believe it or not. Japan, I
From
think.
Hawaii, yeah.
Mm. Not all called the Yeti, obviously. They have their own names for them, you know, because you wouldn't you? If you go back 2,000 years ago when we weren't crossing the seas and communicating, we still all had these stories of the wild man in the woods, you know, the big giant, and we weren't communicating with each other. But we all seem to recognize that Sasquatch, Bigfoot silhouette, that shape. I don't know if that's something within us primal, but we do seem to be very interested in it. Let's put it that way. You know, you can get obsessed with it when you, as you can tell, yeah, you can get obsessed with it.
Well, I know that there's reports that have come out of the wars in the Mideast from our soldiers, as well as some other countries' soldiers, of having sightings of strange creatures that look markedly like what we consider our Bigfoot here. And I find that interesting, way over in the mountains there. So it is a worldwide phenomenon, and it goes back to a lot of things that I talk about with ghosts, which is where my interests mainly lie. Intelligent people, college educated, definitely folks that have solid jobs, scientists, executives, have all seen these things. So many people have seen things. How can you just automatically dismiss them? Too many people have seen too many things.
I mean, I always say to people, who am I to judge? I mean, I saw something that was completely ridiculous. It cannot have happened. We don't put this much effort in. I say that a lot to the doubters. I don't get paid to do this. I do all of this, I do myself. And all of BBI, we do for free. We never ask for any money or anything like that. I know out there are other people like me, like I used to be, that are not sure about coming forward with what they've seen because they think nobody will believe me. Well, I will. If you're prepared to speak to me about it, I will give you 150% confidentiality. I'm not going to, it doesn't matter to me whether that story goes on YouTube. All of that is just the stuff I do around. That just pays for everything. My real 100% interest is in that person and how they recover from that event. Because you'll hear it, it doesn't matter what the phenomenon is. If you're terrified of something, you have to get up the next day and go to work. You have to see to the children.
And it's very real to you.
It is very real to that person. So that's where my skill set lies, is with saying, I didn't experience the same as you, but I know what it's like to question myself constantly, all of the time. And I know what it's like to be disbelieved. And if you want to talk about it, here's my number, give me a ring.
Have you ever received a report or gotten information that you've been able to prove was a hoax or false? I'm not even really talking about somebody that may have some other issues, that they saw something that they legitimately believed that they saw, but evidence later showed they didn't. I'm talking about somebody that's actually tried to pull a hoax on you. Have you ever had that?
Most definitely. And see, in the early days, I get really, really angry about it. So I would use my skill set to say, look, this person is lying. We had, I'm not going to mention names or anything like that. We had quite a famous case in the UK where there was going to be a documentary on the British Bigfoot. And the chap that was doing the filming, obviously, was meeting as many people as he could across the UK. Now, he came to interview me, and I did my interview with him and everything. And I said, how's it going? And he said, well, we're in Yorkshire yesterday and we spoke to this lass, and she's managed to get a dogman on video, and, you know, she's given us all of these experiences and everything. And she gave us a photograph of a Bigfoot dogman-like creature that's walking up through the woods. And I said, oh, can I have a look at it? And he showed it me, and I said, that's an illustration. Dale O'Dell, the artist in Arizona in America, did that in 2007. And it was for an exhibition. You know, she's still out there on YouTube. People are still watching the programs. You can out people as much as you like. You get some very just utterly ridiculous, people. And I think, don't insult my intelligence and don't insult the real witnesses, because there's no agenda with a witness. They're either absolutely terrified and it all comes pouring out at once, or you're having to pull it out like teeth. Hoaxes will really push the remit. You know, when's my story going out? When's my story going out? So you have your little tricks and your little things that you do to, you know, and I mean, I wouldn't, I'm not going to say them on here because I'm going to use them in the future, but you're a police officer, you get used to interview techniques. You know, the best way to get a story's the wrong word, but to get that narrative, you know, the best thing to do is individual with each person you talk to, isn't it?
Yeah, and you have to take each case individually, and you're 100% right. Watching how they say it, how they present the facts, maybe asking some questions to get them to in a couple different ways to see if you get the same answer. Absolutely, but those folks that do try to pull the wool over others' eyes, and I'm going to dare say most of the time it's for self-engrandiment. They want to make a buck, be on TV or whatever. But they hurt the credibility of everybody else that's actually just trying to find the answer to the question. Would you agree?
I would agree. Unfortunately, I would say that for every 100 absolutely trustworthy witnesses, we probably only have 5 or 6 hoaxes. So it's a massive, you know, the scale's massive either way.
Yeah, but those are the ones that we hear about, are the ones that try to hoax you.
Yes, most definitely. But I think that's in every country, and I think it's everywhere. People, they just want a quick buck, don't they? They don't want to put the 40 years in. And I just think, why would you insult my intelligence? Surely you would have, there again, I suppose that tells me what they are, isn't it? If they think they're going to get a fast one on me, and I've spoken to so many people, and I've, you know, well, more fool them. But I always say that's not on us, that's on them. If they come to me with a fake story,
I would agree with that. Now, with all the reports that you get, do you store these reports, keep them, maybe refer back to them when you get similar reports, maybe a year or so later? Do you have that kind of system set up?
I do, and I set it up very early on. I have a background in geological profiling, and what that is, it's watching populations of people, and you kind of take all the data in and all the variables, and you look at where maybe the next big shopping mall should be, or the next big home should be, right? So that's what you do. So you map certain things, and I thought, right, that's what I need to do. So every time I got a report that came in, I had a big map on the wall of England, and I'd stick a pin in, and you know, and I'd write it down, simply because, Larry, I wanted to be able to look back in years to come and say, oh, look, I've got 4 or 5 reports in that area now. When you map things, it makes a pattern, and patterns stand out. And luckily, Google came along with Google Maps. So that's my filing system. I have a public map that's out there, and anybody who wants to view it, they can. It's completely free. When a report comes into me, it goes onto the map. I add any evidence finds that have come in with it. Anything that we've had, that goes onto the map, and I name it, I pin it right where the report's happened. And I say to people, if you want to go out and investigate these places, you don't need my permission. Just go for it. Just go, you know, have a look. If you're bored one Sunday and you think, I'll have a look what's on Deb's map, and you'll probably find something within 25 miles away where you could, you know, just half an hour, quarter an hour down the motorway, and you're there. And people do that, and then they started sending me things in, and they take photographs of the area, or they video the area. And to me, that's amazing, because that's ground truth, as the army call it. Looking on a map is one thing, but feet on the ground, you want to know terrain, you want to know habitat. Is there food, shelter, water, all of these things? And that's how the organisation started.
Now, here's something I wanted to know. You talked about having volunteer investigators in your bio. How many are on your team, and are they all in your area, or do you have them worldwide?
They're worldwide.
And they report back to you?
Yeah, probably 400, 500 in England.
Oh my.
And yeah, and then they spread out across the world. So there's because people don't know about us, we don't have the huge numbers that come forward. But I'm doing everything I can to open up. It started with Europe, and simply because I thought England is an island. And if they're seeing them in Russia and they don't have to cross any water bodies across Europe, I should be finding reports in Europe. And I did. When I looked, I did. So as each new report comes in, not every witness will do it, but some witnesses will say, if anything else comes in from my area, will you let me know? And I say, yeah, of course I will, not a problem. In the UK, we started meeting up, COVID permitting, we've started meeting up with other teams and things like that now, because we've been shut down for 2 years and we've had to do everything online. So that's opening up again. So like in Australia, I've probably got 4 researchers, but we're not well known. You know, we're not known enough now. We are in the.
Hopefully we can change that. Hopefully we can change that.
I'm hoping to change that. Ideally, what I'd love to do is get other people doing what I do in other countries. So if you're a Bigfoot witness or you're a paranormal investigator, so you've got a set of skills. You know what it's like to go in and investigate a house. Do the same in the woods. Take your EMF meter. Check all of your gear, because woodlands are haunted just as much as houses are. And people walk right past them.
Well, I've actually been trying to create a repository of reports myself. Started an organization actually to begin to do that. But I'm finding a lot of folks in the paranormal, the ghost field, they're a little reluctant to share information sometimes, although I'm finding that is changing. And there's a lot of folks that I work with that believe in sharing the information and putting it in a spot where everybody can all look at it, share it, compare it. So we're trying to do the same thing. And so I applaud you for what you're doing.
It will come together for you. I found that in the early days that once people know about what you're doing, I expected a big backlash of negative, and I've never really had that, to be honest. I've been certain individuals, but they don't worry me. As a whole, the members and the listeners and the people that take part, everything's really positive. And I remember thinking, 6 years they've been at it in America, and they're all still arguing with each other about whose experience is worse than the other person's experience. Put that down, sit down and think, right, where did he have it? Well, he had it there, he had it there. Right, what's the common denominator in both those areas? Stop arguing and start investigating. And it's like that in all field, in whatever genre of field that you're in. But you will find, Larry, a core group that have the same values, principles as yourself, and it starts small and it grows, but that's the best way. I would rather have 20 really legitimate people around me than 500 who just really couldn't care. You get what I mean? It's quality, not quantity. And it took me 20 years just to get to where I am now, and that's just online. Before that there was nobody, there was just me.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll even get the word out further. I want to ask you about a couple of other things that you brought up. You mentioned reptilian, and I want to ask you about that. But first, Dogman. Now, this is a phenomenon that we haven't heard too much about that here in the States. What is Dogman?
Well, I would say the old word for it would be a werewolf, possibly, or Rougarou, something that you'd have down in Louisiana. Okay. So we're talking about, now that I've got to say there's lots of theories behind it, exactly as there is with Bigfoot. Some people think they're the same creature and it's just facial details that are different.
Okay.
Dog-like creatures are said to have a snout. But after taking the reports, they kind of fall into 3 categories. So you've got the typical werewolf that's got dog's hands, ears on top of its head, a tail, typical. And then you've got this, what I would class as a dog-headed man. So it's a human body, hands, feet, no tail, completely hair covered, but with a snouted face. And then you have what others would class as almost hybrid. So they're kind of a cross between a human hybrid soldier, but that's going down the rabbit hole. It depends on how far you want to go down it. But they are typically canine creatures. And I have to disagree with you and say that there are actually lots of people in America that have seen them. Okay. And you come forward with it, but I think it's hard for them. It's hard enough to accept Bigfoot. So to accept that someone's seen a werewolf-like creature it's another step up. But when you look back in history, there's been lots of dog-headed deities, Anubis, it's always been in our history. Wales, where I live, the country, has a massive, goes right back in their history, the dog-headed men. And they tend to be seen and found around graveyards. I found, in my opinion, old ancient sites and new burial grounds. So one famous case in America is the Beast of Bray Road.
The Beast of where?
Bray Road. So
Bray
it's B-R-A-Y and then Road.
Okay.
It's a case that's been watched for about 40 years where you very much like, you know, you get a haunted highway. So people go out there and let's go out there because you know that something's going to happen. That kind of happens a lot on Bray Road. And it is said to be a creature that stands on 2 legs or down on all 4, that is very thickly muscled, completely hair covered, fangs, canines like a dog, teeth on top, ears on top of the head, the typical dog-like looking creature. And that, I've never experienced anything like that. I would be absolutely terrified if I saw something like that coming out of the woods. January of this year, Chris Huff lives in the northeast of England and they share a border with Scotland, so it's absolutely beautiful country out there. But when it's dark, there's no street lights or anything else. And this chap's January it was when the new moon was on at the beginning of the year, and his wife said, let's have a drive out to Simonside Hills and we'll watch the sunset. You don't get a whole lot of sun in the UK during winter time. I mean, it was dark here today at 11 a.m. for me.
Wow.
So that's what they did. He said, and we're driving, and this rush of sheep come running over the road. It's only like you can't get 2 cars down the road. You can only get 1 car down. And the sheep come running. And he said, I looked to see what was chasing him, expected to see like a domestic dog or something, or a poacher. And he said this thing leant out sideways out of the bushes. And he said, I only saw like half of its head, its shoulder and its arm, but it was black and it looked like it had an ear on top of its head. You know, and I thought, well, I'll have a look. And there's lots of reports on the northeast coast, even reports of them chasing the car. There's one very famous case that happened in 2018, and this creature was said to be 7 foot tall. It was down on all 4s at first. It stood up on 2 legs, and it had a German Shepherd dog in its mouth, and it bounded over a 6-foot fence. And the newspapers got involved in that and everything. And it just got ridiculed to death. So, but there's lots. The northeast coast of England has a great deal of dogman and werewolf reports.
Well, I'll tell you, the mysteries of England and the hauntings of England just keep going with all these different types of stories. I mean, we think of England, we think of ghosts and castles and abbeys, which are certainly there.
I do that as well. Uncover mystery murders from 1748. Do you want to hear about that one?
If we had time. But I mean, with all of the history in England and that part of the world, there's no doubt that there's legends, stories, and strange things that have occurred. I just didn't realize that England had such an interesting dogman, Bigfoot type of history. If somebody out there, Deb, has a report or has seen something, how do they get a hold of you?
If you put my actual email is just debbiehatswell@gmail.com, all lowercase. You put my name in and put British Bigfoot, I will pop up on Google. I've made sure of that.
That's Hatswell, Hatswell, correct?
That's the one, Hatswell. Put BBI Investigations YouTube and I will pop up. And on my YouTube videos, I link all of my free sites in so people can get hold of me. If you're not happy talking to me about it and you'd much prefer to talk to a male or somebody in your area, I can sort that out. If you just want to tell me in private and have a private conversation, that's absolutely fine as well. Okay,
excellent. Now, you've also written a couple of books.
I have. I seem to write them when I'm under distress, in all honesty, when I take time off. I wrote the first one, which is called The Fortunate Unfortunates, and nobody knew why I used that title. And I used it because of the amount of people that have said to me, oh, I'd love to see what you saw. I would absolutely love to. And I think it absolutely ruined my life for 30 years. And I think grown-ups have a really hard time coming out with a Bigfoot report. But what do you do if you're 6 and you see a wild man in the tree above you and you run home and nobody believes you? Or what if you're 8 and you're in Scotland and you're going down to get the dog food and it's there 8 feet tall in the farm lane looking at a tree? Who takes those reports? And that was me. They were the people that I found later on in my 40s. I wrote the first book about that. Children that witnessed just awful things. And this second book is about the canine creatures and people who witnessed those.
And what are the titles of the books?
People who experience paranormal events, something like that. You can tell how interested I am in my own books now. And people who see werewolves. Well, I have the link on all of my sites. I tend to write.
Well, I also know that you got a Facebook. So go to what's your Facebook? Just Deborah Hatswell?
Deborah Hatswell again, yeah. BBI Investigations.
BBI Investigations. You can find out about the her books on there. Fascinating story, Deb. And I got to tell you, the generator that you're having to use right now, making your lights go on and off, gives it a really cool look. This whole thing. For those of that watch the video feed of this, it's kind of a neat little extra there. Go ahead, Cliff.
I notice when she doesn't say anything, the lights don't move, and then she starts talking, then they start flickering. It's come from the generator. Right
It's her paranormal aura.
Yeah,
Cliff.
yeah.
That's what it is. But Deb, this is there we go. It's doing it again. Deb, this has been a fascinating day, and it's gone so quickly. I do appreciate you being with us today from the north of England, especially with all the weather that you've had up there. But thank you so much for joining us. And folks, if you get a chance, go to Deb Hatsfield on her Facebook. You can find out about the BBR, Being Believed, Research and Investigations, and learn more about it. And folks, this will end to this week. Now, join us next week. I got some folks coming from Australia next week, so it's going to be a great show. And until we get together again, take care of your family, hug your young ones, and more importantly, stay safe. Until next time, we'll see you on the other side. Take care.
The Ghost Guy, Larry Lawson.
Thank you for joining us for Indian River Hauntings presents Encounters with the Other Side. If you'd like to join Larry for a ghost tour or one of his events, check the Indian River Hauntings website for Treasure Coast locations, and be sure to follow on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Until next time.